Welcome back to Honey Badger 3D Print and Paint. Today I'm going to be showing you around my paint station, but before we do that, roll those credits. Right, now you get a lot of questions on some of the Facebook groups saying, how do you go about setting up your paint station? What's the best way to do this? What's the best way to do that? I'm creating a permanent paint station. How do you do yours? Well, I thought, why not show you around mine? And it might answer a few people's questions. So let's have a closer look. Now, to start with, paint rack I've got on the left-hand side here. These are all Citadel paints, which I have changed over to dropper bottles. I found I had all my Citadel paints in the drawers under the desk, and I just wasn't using them because it was a case of sorting through them all, and I was finding that most of them just weren't getting used. Now I've got them in dropper bottles and I've got them on the desk. I've been using these far more. Plus I just find it 1,000 times easier using a dropper bottle than I do a Citadel pot. Now on the back of the paint rack, I've got my airbrush cleaner, flow improver, thinner, and a selection of some of my brushes. So that keeps them nice and tidy and within reaching distance. Now next to them, I've got a paint holder with some of the most common washes I use. I've got a load more washes, but I don't tend to use them often, so they're in the drawer, but they're the ones that I do tend to use. And next to that, just got some overspill, some more Vallejo Citadel paints that didn't fit in these racks, and I haven't got enough room to put my 3D. These are 3D printed, these racks, by the way. I just haven't got enough room to add another one of them. So I just found a different one, printed that. That's just for the overspill. These 3 different racks I've got, they're all just off Thingiverse. There's hundreds of them on there. I just found one I like the look of, printed them out. Now, on to the paint racks along the back wall. On the left-hand side here is mostly all Vallejo paints. I did, a long time ago, I got the 80 or 100 pot set. I've added to it with extra colours, and there's also some like model paint in there. There's some scale 75, some green stuff weld. But what I tend to do is try and keep them into their colours. That way when I'm looking, I can see the scales of the colours. Makes it super easy to find what I want. There's a few specials in here, like we've got some of the green stuff, weld, vomit, coagulated blood, orc blood, all that sort of stuff. Now, the rack on the right hand side, that's all airbrush paint. I like to keep them separate for obvious reasons. Along the bottom here, this is Dark Star molten metal set. If you haven't seen this before, look it up. It's just a set of golds, silvers, steels, bronzes, and that is a fabulous set of paints. There's a few other specials mixed in with this as well. We've got some colour shift paints and some spider serum and some liquid frost, stuff like that. But that's mostly all airbrushing paints. Now, when I'm painting, I use 2 palettes. So I use a steel one like this. This is for when I'm creating washes, because it's got the divots in it. You can create a wash. As soon as you're finished, wipe it out with some paper towel. That's good to go. When I'm painting, I just use a saucer. I have got a wet palette. I don't use it very often for 2 reasons. One, because it's obviously like a big square box. You'll see most of the projects that we do are quite large. So when you've got a large wet palette on the desk, it's not always enough room to get the model on that you're painting as well. Secondly, wet palettes are fantastic for when you're painting smaller stuff. When you want to go back to the same colour and you want to swap between colours, it's fantastic. Again, because we do bigger stuff, we're not using a couple of drops. We're using a lot of paint in one go. So if I put a large blob on my plate, I'm going to use it. I know how much I'm going to use. I might get a little bit of wastage, but a lot of our models may end up buying 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pots of paint in particular just for that model. So You may get a bit of wastage, but it's easier working like that on a large model on this desk than it is trying to fit a wet palette on here at the same time when we're not using small amounts of paint and going back to we are using a lot of paint all in one go. Now, onto the right hand side, we have got my dry brushes. So these are the Artist Opus dry brush set. I've had this a few weeks now. Genuinely, I do love these dry brushes. They're not cheap, granted, but I thought I'd treat myself and I got myself the dry brushes, and they are fantastic. Fantastic. I really like using these, so I'm pleased I got hold of that. Now, over the back here, we've got a glass with a lot of my random brushes, Games Workshop brushes, some cheap brushes that I've got. Sometimes we are putting large amounts of paint on stuff and it's not always airbrush. So I usually have a selection of large, cheap brushes for that exact reason. You know, I don't always want to use my best brushes for something, use the cheaper ones. We've got a cup for cleaning your brushes. I tend to leave it nice and dirty on the outside like this because I'm never going to be mistakenly picking that up and trying to drink from it. That's the butterbeer glass from Harry Potter World. Butterbeer, by the way, that was vile. The best part about it was keeping the glass. I also have a water dropper bottle. This is for when, one, I'm making washes. You can control the amount of water that comes out of this easily, and also for cleaning my airbrush. In between colours, I'll run a couple of cups of water through it. Don't always need to put airbrush cleaner through it. Run water through it. Once I've finished using the airbrush, I will give it a good clean out with the airbrush cleaner. But in between colours, I tend to use water. Now, onto the airbrushes. So, these are Green Stuff World airbrushes. I used to use Iwata Neos, so I've got a couple of them, but I don't actually use them anymore. I find the Iwatas clogged easily, always stripping them down to clean them. I bought one of these Green Stuff World airbrushes, and these are cheap, by the way. These are like £25, and I ended up buying the set. I love these airbrushes. So this one is a 0.2. That's the red one. You've got the green one, which is a 0.3, and you've got a blue one, which is a 0.5. 0.5 tends to get a lot of use, to be honest. The holder I've got for them, again, that's just 3D printed off a Thingiverse. Keeps them nice and neat, keeps them all upright. Means while I'm airbrushing, if I need to change brushes in between, I can leave them there and just swap about the three of them. Along with them, a pair of side cutters, because you never know when you find a bit of support or something you've missed along the way. A pair of side cutters, just for any clean-up work. The same. Good pair of tweezers. Good set of tweezers for the same thing again. Now, next to them, we have got Paint Shaker. This is just a cheap nail varnish mixer off of Amazon. I can't remember how much it was. They are very cheap though. Put your bottle on there, put the strap over, press the button. 30 seconds of that. If you've got an agitator in the pot, mixes the pot, paint lovely. I've also got my airbrush spray out pot right here. Along with that as well, the trusty paper towel. Couldn't live without that. And behind that, we've got a box of rubber gloves. So if I'm doing something with the airbrush and I'm gonna be getting overspray, put a glove on, saves getting overspray all over your hands. Behind that, we've got my airbrush compressor, nice out of the way. Got to live without that if you've got an airbrush. And right here, we've got an ultrasonic cleaner. I only tend to use the ultrasonic cleaner when I am cleaning my airbrushes. Every so often I will strip the airbrush down, put it in the ultrasonic cleaner, give it an hour, come out, any bits of paint that are on it, they've either gone or you can wipe them clean off. Good bit of kit, mainly just for airbrushes. I know some people use it for cleaning resin parts, but I don't really do much resin printing, so mine's just for cleaning airbrushes. Now, above the top of the ultrasonic cleaner and the airbrush compressor, got a shelf with some more paints on. So Got my brush soap and the wet pad for the Artist Opus brushes for running the paint out on them. Now, painting sets. I will be the first one to admit I've got a bit of a obsession with buying paint kits. Some paint kits are very good. So the Vallejo Wood and Leather, the Vallejo Rust and Stain, they're two great kits. Good thing about Vallejo is they always give you detailed instructions to recreate whatever the kit is designed for. A lot of the colour sets here are also Green Stuff World and Scale Colour, Scale 75. Now, they don't give you any form of instructions, which if you bought something like Malefic Skin paint set, it's a very detailed kit to create a very, very specific look. But what they don't do is tell you how to create that look. Now, I buy a lot of kits as well, just solely for the colours in the paint, in the kits. Not necessarily to use them for what that kit is intended for. For example, the Malefic Skin paint set, I never bought that with the intention of creating that skin colour, but the colours of the paints that were in that set are colours that I wanted. And what I tend to do when I'm painting is I may use a colour from a specific set for something I'm doing. I may think to myself, I need that, I need this sort of colour, and I'll pop it out of one of the sets. Half the sets I buy are solely just because I want the colours that are involved in that set. I did get a few more sets recently, and they are the Vallejo Galaxy Dust and Space Dust. They are an equivalent to the Green Stuff World Colour Shift paints, so I want to give them a try really, see what they're like. Next to them, we have got a selection of the Alclad paints. They are fantastic paints. You can get, like the chrome is chrome, you can get a candy red that is perfect for Iron Man. Great paints. They do take quite a while to dry. They're quite messy as well, to be honest. Again, they're paints for very specific reasons. There's a couple of projects I've done where I've used them on, but I also probably haven't used them for a year. Behind them, I've got some of my texture paints, like the Vallejo Thick Mud, Splash Mud, Dust and Dirt Pigments, all of that sort of stuff. So that's that. Right, you'll notice as well, above my paint racks, I've also got a television. That's linked to my computer, which is the opposite side of the room. I use that for when I'm painting and I'm trying to recreate either something that's sort of photorealistic or screen accurate. What I tend to do is pull up the images and have them on the television in front of me while I'm painting. Things like when I did Davy Jones or Jack Sparrow, I was copying an already established image. So I have the images in front of me so that I can keep referring to them. And instead of having to keep looking behind me, switching back, looking behind me, have it on the telly in front of me. Perfect. Also, when I'm not copying something and I'm sort of, you know, doing my own paint job on something, Netflix. I don't think there's anything worse than sitting in a silent room while I'm painting. I'll either have some music on or I'll have Netflix on while I'm painting. Right, one of the big things as well is space on your desk. I can't stress how much it is, having enough space on your desk so that you've got room to paint and move the model around, how important that is. Obviously, when you're painting something, I might have 10 pots, 15 pots of paint out that I'm using for a model. So once you've got your palette there, 10, 15 pots of paint, a few different brushes, some paper towel, your water, and then you try and put a model on there as well. Now, granted, if you're a miniature painter, it's not so much of a problem, but if you're doing any larger projects, you need that room to be able to put the model on the table as well and move it around, which is important because most models are not circular. They'll have parts sticking out all over the place. You need enough room to be able to turn a model, to work on it and look on it at all sides. So I can't stress enough how much space is actually important on your desk. Underneath my desk I have a heater. My workshop is out in the garage. It can get very cold in here during the winter, so I do have a heater under the desk, keep my legs nice and toasty. Now, granted, I understand space isn't a luxury that everybody has. I'm very lucky that my workshop is in the garage, so I've got a dedicated paint space. My computer desk is on the opposite side. My 3D printers are all up that end of the room. And I've got plenty of space for shelving and filming and stuff like that. Not everybody has, which is where designing your paint station becomes more important. And I think part of that important is racking. I've only, in the last couple of months, started racking all my paints. Before that, I have got drawers either side of my desk and everything was in drawers. And to be honest, finding something you wanted was a nightmare, but also I found myself kept using the same paints and not using the selection of my paints because I knew where that green was, so I grabbed it. Now, where I've got my paints on display and racked, I tend to browse my selection more when I'm doing stuff and alternate all my colours. Because I've got them to hand and I can see them, I can also pull them all out. If I wanted a brown, I'm saying in particular, I'll pull out all my browns and I'll go through them all. Because they're all in front of me and to hand, it's very easy to do, and I can choose the best colour that I want. So I think if someone was to ask me the best thing to do for a paint station, it's rack your paints so that they're visible. You will find you will use a lot more of them if they're in front of you and they're to hand. As soon as you can't see them, you stop using them. Right, I think that pretty much covers everything for my paint station. I hope it was informative. You got a bit of a behind the scenes look of where I do my painting. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever our next video comes out. We've got tons and tons coming out over the next few weeks. We've got a lot of projects we've previously done that you've never seen. For one reason or another, we never did videos on them. Some of them were before we started the channel. So we've got a bit of a throwback to some of the stuff you've never seen that we've done before. So I'm looking forward to that. So thanks for joining us and I'll see you on the next video. Thanks a lot. Bye.